Well, welcome back. I'm Carol Daniel, news anchor and talk show host with KMOX Radio in St. Louis, Missouri, one of 6 radio stations owned by Odyssey here in St. Louis. Welcome back to another installment for Black History Month of Living History. And I have called it Living History. You've heard me explain this. I'm calling it Living History because while history matters every day of our lives, I have come to understand that there are so many individuals walking amongst us who are making history right now. And that's why I call it Living History. And I also think that it's inspirational for people today to connect what happened 100 years ago, what happened 50 years ago, to what is happening today. We are still making history today. And so we welcome another person to our long-running series. I'm calling it long-running because I want it to be long-running. Living History on KMOX. She is a first in the country, not just here at the University of Missouri St. Louis, but a first in the country. She is the first Black woman to be the Dean of Optometry for any school in the entire country. And she happens to have just been named the Dean of the School of Optometry at UMSL, the University of Missouri St. Louis. Please welcome Dr. Keisha Elder. Dr. Elder, it is such a joy and an honor to meet you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Carol. It's just really great to be here today speaking with you. So thank you.
What? Did you know that you were making history when you were named the Dean?
You know, I did. The first Black dean was a male, Dr. Melvin Chip at Ohio State, and he actually taught me, was one of my professors in optometry school. So when he became dean years ago, I'm like, okay, we're starting something, the trend is going to finally start, but that was years ago. So when I became dean, I knew I was making history, but I really didn't really think about the magnitude of that accomplishment, nor did I really focus on at that time also the sadness that it took so long, for this milestone to be met, because I never really thought I'd be the first African-American, the first Black female dean, because I really just assumed that someone had to do it before me. So it was never really anything that I really thought about.
And now that you've thought about it, is it both overwhelming? Is it also, clearly it's an honor.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely an honor, and it can be overwhelming if I kind of stay in that space. So I know that I'm the first Black female dean, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad of that, and it is definitely an honor, but I try not to focus on that. I try to focus on getting the work done, because I definitely have the responsibility to my students, to my staff, to my faculty, to make sure that I do what I can to continue the great history of the UMSL College of Optometry, and to make sure that we are well positioned to be successful in the future. So if I kind of think about, oh gosh, I'm the first Black female dean, and all that really encompasses, that thought process can be paralyzing if I sit in that. So I kind of think about it, say, yeah, that's really cool, and I try to move on and get to work.
And you'll be an inspiration to others. Can I say these two eyes are 60 years old. They'll be 61 in March, and I've never had a Black optometrist.
Oh, and see, that's just sad. That right there just is so sad to me, because the percentage of African-American optometrists is just so low. The percentages of African-Americans in optometry schools is very low. And one of my passions for optometry and for UMSL in particular is to increase the diversity of our student body, because we want our students and our patients and our faculty and staff to represent all of us. So I think that because you are 61, the fact that you can say that, that's just sad. We should have more representation, as specifically for African-Americans and all other represented minorities, but African-Americans specifically in optometry.
And I'm going to get into your journey to this point in 2023, but I've been to the School of Optometry at UMSL. Tell people what makes it so special.
There are a lot of things that make it special. We are a little bit, we entered our first class in 1980, so we're right around 42 years old, 43 years old this year. So we are an older school, but still kind of new in the grand scheme of optometry schools, but definitely one of the more established schools. We are a little bit smaller. We typically accept between 45 to 50 students per year, usually land right around 48. So it's a very small college for our student body. So we normally have less than 200 students here at any one time. And what that does, it allows the students to really bond and get to know each other really well, but it also allows them to bond with the faculty and staff. So when you leave UMSL, so I tell my students when they interview, I make it a point when they interview, if I'm on campus or even if I'm off campus, I try to zoom in to say hello to the potential applicants. And I tell them, if you want to go to a school where you can just disappear in the background and nobody knows you're here, don't come to UMSL. That's not going to happen here. We are too small. We care too much, and we're going to make sure that you're taken care of. So I think that the size of the school plus the family feel is something that I think is really great about UMSL. But also the faculty and staff, we truly sincerely care about our students. We know that our students and teaching them and developing them into great optometrists is the reason that we're here. And when you have a bunch of people who are all working towards that same goal, you just get a really fabulous product.
Now, what does it take to be an optometrist? You are Dr. Keisha Elder.
Yes. So typically, optometry school is a 4-year professional program after undergraduate school. So most of our students, probably about 98% of our students, have their undergraduate degree. It is possible to get accepted with 90 hours, so not without completing your undergraduate degree, but that has to be a phenomenal student. So almost everyone has their bachelor's degree, and you have to meet your prerequisites, your chemistry, your biology, things of that nature. And then you come in, we have a 4-year program. The first 2 years, you're learning how to be an optometrist, how to do an eye exam, and a lot of the basic science things behind how the body works, how the eyes work. 3rd year, you're still learning skills. You're doing eye exams. You're more focused on learning things specifically about the eye. And then your 4th year, you're just all clinical rotations. So you're either on campus or off campus, and you have to take your parts 1, 2, and 3 of your national boards. And then if everything goes well, and we assume that it will, after your 4 years, you'll graduate with an OD degree, which is a doctorate of optometry. One great thing about optometry is that once you graduate, you can get licensed in any state and you can practice optometry, or you can do like a 1-year residency. So it's a little bit of an additional educational program after you graduate if you want to specialize, say, in cornea contact lenses or do more in pediatrics or ocular disease. So you can do a 1-year residency, get a little bit additional specialized education, and then go out into the workforce.
All right. I did not know that. I never knew what it took to become an optometrist. So, Dr. Keisha Elder, were you Kiki? Were you, when you were a little girl? I know you had a nickname.
You know what? My dad would call me Kiki sometimes, but I always really just went by Keisha. Actually, my birth name was Ebony Keisha Sims, but no one ever called me Ebony. So when I get married, I dropped my first name, Ebony, and then Keisha became my first name. My maiden name, Sims, is now my middle name, and my married last name is Elder. So I used to be Ebony Keisha Sims, and now I'm Keisha Sims Elder.
Where did you grow up?
I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I lived in the same house my entire life. My parents, we were in the same home with our family. We never moved. I went to undergraduate at Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina. And then I ended up going to optometry school at UAB in Birmingham, Alabama, is where I had my professional training. Yes.
Southern girl.
I am. I'm the Southern girl who's now in the Midwest for the second time.
So what was life like growing up? And the inevitable question is, when did you decide that you wanted to be an optometrist?
Yeah, so growing up was nice. We lived in a normal, traditional, middle class Black neighborhood. My parents were both educators. They were both teachers. They both had their master's degrees. They were elementary school teachers. So we were very fortunate. In my family growing up, I had an older sister and a younger brother. But because my parents were educators, they had a really high expectation on us about achievement. But also with that, we knew that once we graduated high school, we were going to college. So we knew that the next step naturally for us after high school was college. So when I was in, of course, it was a relatively smart child. So I was in the, the advanced classes, things of that nature. But one thing that I participated in is the summer after my sophomore year and after my junior year in high school, I went to a program called the Clemson Career Workshop. So we stayed there 2 years the first summer, and then 2 weeks the first summer, and then 3 weeks the second summer. This is the summer after your junior year of high school. And the second year I was in that program, I kind of went through the health profession track. And that's actually when I was first exposed to optometry. Now at Clemson, I was started as an engineering major because of course all smart Black students at that time were geared toward engineering. Started as an engineering major at Clemson, then transferred to math education, and then went to straight math because I was like, I just want to do math. And then I went back to math education because it was going to take a little bit longer to do math and still get certified. So I was going to finish my degree at Clemson in December of 1993. So that summer I was working as an assistant to the department head of the math department, and they had some math convention on campus, and I was on campus that summer. So I was at this convention and they were talking about in-part type graphs. And I'm like looking around, I'm like looking at the people there who are very nice and fun. Well, nice people, maybe fun is not the best of description, but I was like, these are not my people. I'm an introvert, but I definitely love to interact with people, but I needed more interaction than I could get just from that math pathway I was going down. So I started back thinking like, what could I possibly do instead? What is something else I can do? And I started thinking about optometry because I was exposed to it when I was at that Clemson Career Workshop. So I got one of my girlfriends, we drove down to the school in Alabama to visit optometry school, and I was just amazed. I had no idea about all the things that you could do as an optometrist. So literally I decided the summer before I graduated that December that I was going to go to optometry school. I took the optometry admissions test, applied to 3 schools, ended up interviewing at 2 because I ran out of money, didn't go to the third one, got into both schools that I applied to, was very fortunate that I did really well on my admissions test, had really good grades in undergraduate. And then I ended up entering the fall class of 1994 at UAB. And literally, if I had not been a participant in the Clemson Career Workshop, I probably would not be sitting here today.
So tell me because you said you were amazed at all the things that you learned at that workshop that you could do in optometry. And everybody watching right now and listening is going to think, what all things are you talking about? You're checking my eyes and I can see or I can't see. You're telling me I have cataracts or I don't have cataracts.
So it's, the basic things that we do are helping you see better, So of course you come in and we do an eye exam and we can get you fit with contacts or glasses so you can see. And that's important because vision is very vital to all of your daily activities. However, a lot of people don't know that we treat eye infections. You have a herpes simplex eye infection or a bacterial infection, we can treat that. You have styes, we can treat things of that nature. When we dilate your eyes and use those bright lights and look into your eyes, we can actually see your blood vessels in your eyes. We can diagnose patients with high blood pressure, diagnose patients with diabetes. We can diagnose patients that have tumors. A lot of patients who may not go to their primary care physician, if they can't see, they're going to come to the eye doctor. So a lot of times we are the gateway to getting people into their physicians for care because they come to us and then we diagnose them with something that could be life-threatening, and then we get them to the medical care that we need. So optometry is a really great profession, and people really underestimate the things that we could do as an optometrist.
Now, interesting story. My last eye exam last year, my annual eye exam, my doctor retired before the pandemic, so I had to find a new doctor.
Oh
I was able to
gosh.
get an eye exam before I even could find another doctor. And I knew, Dr. Elder, that because like I said, I turned 60 and I'm thinking, some things may happen with my health. Maybe I'm a diabetic now.
Right.
I'm not, but I was worried about that. And I knew in the eye exam, if anything's wrong, if my blood pressure's up, if they see something wrong, they're going to see it in my eyes.
Exactly.
So I went
Exactly.
into my annual eye exam last year, not just hoping that my vision was fine, but knowing that they might be able to see other health issues because I hadn't been able to go to the doctor in 3 years.
And that's smart and that's perfect, that's the role we serve. And of course, we treat things like glaucoma. So, so there's just a lot more to an eye exam, a lot more to be an optometrist or an eye doctor than just glasses and contact lenses. So if you are someone who is science minded, but don't want to be a dentist, don't want to, be a traditional physician, I mean, I think you should really think about optometry because it is a really, really great profession.
I want people to know that we have different orientations because your camera's in one place and your computer screen is in another. So there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with your screen. Do not adjust your screen. We are just
Give me a
fine.
line.
Yes, yes, yes. You and I have something in common in that our parents, are your parents still with us?
No, they're both deceased,
I'm
unfortunately.
so sorry to hear that. And to have been in common that our parents were still married. Mine are still alive and still married. And I wonder how you work that out in your heart as someone who's in a profession where you don't see a lot of other people who look like you. And we also don't see a lot of other people who look like us being married, having children, having your advanced degree.
Right,
You're in rarefied air as an
right.
African-American woman.
Yeah, I think, my entire upbringing prepared me for this because I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood, I would say predominantly Black, pretty much all Black. But so rode the bus, in middle school and elementary school with my Black friends and my Black neighbors, but I was in advanced classes. So once I would get to school, I would kind of separate and go to the classes, the higher level classes, which typically I was one of 3, maybe 4 or 5 Black kids. So I always had to navigate between my natural Black space and my not Black space because of the courses I was in. So when I did that through elementary school, middle school, and high school. And then when I went to Clemson for undergrad, which is a PWI, there were very few Black students at Clemson. So no matter where I was, I was one of a few in all of my classes. So I was just accustomed to that space. When I went to optometry school, once again, there were not a whole lot of Black students in optometry school at UAB. So I was just one of a few there. But I think because that is what I was accustomed to, it was just, human nature for me. But, there are times when, you just get tired and, there were times I was lonely, there were times I would go to a meeting and I'm like, even professional meetings, I'm like the only Black female, the only Black person, the only optometrist, and it takes a lot of self-awareness and a lot of internal grit to be able to navigate those spaces and be okay. And it is my dream that our students, in the future don't have to necessarily possess that grit to be successful because everybody doesn't have it. I mean, I'm not anything special or fantastic or whatever, I just happen to do okay, professionally, but you shouldn't have to work that hard sometimes to get, where you need to go.
How old were you when you lost your parents?
So my mom passed away the spring of my 3rd year of optometry school. And so I was probably maybe around 25. And then my dad passed away. So she passed away in 1997. And so my dad passed away in 2011. So
you had them long enough that they could give you advice.
Oh, absolutely. So I was well into adulthood. So that's the one great thing. And also my dad had the opportunity to meet both of my children. So he knows, so they know their papa. They didn't know their grandma, but they knew their papa. So that was great.
When you, my mother, who, as I mentioned, is still with us, she used to say to me, if you want to listen to the music, you have to pay the band.
That's right.
And I'm like, that means a lot, but I got it. Talk to me about advice that your parents gave you growing up and even as a young adult.
I think the biggest thing that I can carry from them is that I always had to work hard and work harder maybe than the person beside me who maybe didn't look like me, because I couldn't expect or rely on someone's mercy. So you always had to do what you needed to do so that your work ethic and your product stood on its own. Because sometimes people of color especially don't get the same benefit of the doubt that others, get. So I was taught to work harder so that I could make sure I was successful, but also to make sure that I conducted myself and put forth the effort so I did not have to rely on the benefit of the doubt or rely on someone's mercy in order to be successful. And I
That is
think
really,
that has, man,
that is really
that's
good advice.
yes,
And at the same time, it too is a sad thing.
it is. It is. Because why should you have to do that? Why shouldn't I have the same grace, that other people have? But I mean, in one way that I lived that is when my mom passed away in the spring semester of my third year of optometry school. It was probably a week or so, maybe two before finals. And because that was so embedded in my mind, so she passed away on a Thursday. So that Friday morning before I left, to like two of my girlfriends, they drove me from Birmingham to back to South Carolina. But I went to school Friday morning, met with the student affairs director, talked about my exam schedule, all my makeup time, when I would make up the clinic that I would miss while I was gone before I left. And some people were like, well, why did you do that? How could you be so strong and do that? I'm like, I did not feel comfortable leaving it up to the elements or to the odds that I would be okay if I just, jumped up and ran away from school and then just called them later. So it just made me have to do things that I know that some other people probably would have approached that situation differently, but I wasn't comfortable with that. I knew that I needed to get my business in order before I
Yeah.
left, because my mom would have killed me if I had messed up in school because she passed away. So that just
Mm.
wasn't an option for me.
And you said that they were both teachers. Did they teach in majority Black schools, or where were they educators?
My dad did, but my mom, her school wasn't predominantly Black, but my dad's was. But he was in
Did,
Columbia, South Carolina. My mom taught in like Batesburg. So she taught about 35 minutes away.
oh my,
Yeah.
quite a commute in the South.
Yes, but it's funny because there were like four of them who carpooled for years, and they would just hit the road and go to Batesburg and then come back to Columbia. It was crazy.
One of my sister-in-laws, she just retired, but was a teacher for 37 years, and they're a different breed.
Oh gosh.
Educators are a different breed.
And my mom was a quintessential elementary school teacher. She wore those crazy, silly sweaters and just so kind and loving. And, just when you think of an elementary school teacher, I mean, that was my mom. And my dad taught fifth grade, and he was just like a real stand-up guy who went to work every day suited up. So when you think about a male teacher, he was a typical male teacher. So it was just hilarious that I just grew up around that. So when I actually went and became an optometrist and went into patient care and then made a full circle to come back into optometric education, it wasn't really too much of a stretch because I was a trained teacher at Clemson because I have my degree in science teaching mathematics. I became a clinician, but then I had to come back to my roots, which is optometric education.
And when you say suited up, for those who don't understand, he was wearing a suit every day
A suit, like a suit, yes.
to the fifth grade.
Yes, fifth grade every day,
I love
every
it.
day.
I would
Yes.
love to hear from those students now who are like who love looking good because of their
Right.
great teacher.
Sir, that was Mr. Sims, Mr. Raleigh Sims.
You mentioned the word, and it's a powerful word, expectations, that
Mhm.
the expectation was that you would go to college. I can't help but think that the expectations spread even broader and deeper than that you would be a woman of character and a woman of integrity and a woman of your word, and that you would finish what you started, and all of those things. It was all encompassing in your house, I imagine.
Oh my gosh, yes, because your word, and I try to instill this with my children, your words is important. Do what you say you're gonna do, because people are not really gonna remember what you said. They're gonna remember what you did and how you present it. So it is important to make sure that you follow up with what you say you're gonna follow up with. Am I perfect with that? No, but I know it is important, and I do have enough self-awareness where if I drop the ball on something, I acknowledge it, apologize, fix it, and then move on. But yeah, so they did really have some high expectations of us, not in a negative way and not too high, but expectations that really set us up so that we were able to be successful.
And what was the decision for you to get not just your Doctor of Optometry, but 2 masters? Overachiever.
I am. I'm just one of those people. I was on a meeting right before this one, and they were like, "Can people help?" And I had to bite my tongue not to volunteer, because I have so much going on. I'm like, I cannot volunteer for one more thing right now. I've just always been someone who likes to get in there and wants to, give it my all. If there's an opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of it. So the first time when I was, excuse me, something's on my mouth. So when I was at UAB, there's the opportunity for a dual degree program. So you could go to optometry school, get your OD degree, but also concurrently get your Master of Science in Vision Science. So when I was in optometry school, I took some extra vision science classes, did a research project, and wrote a thesis, and I had to defend it. While I was in school, we got a little bit of a stipend in the summer, but there wasn't any additional financial obligation to get your master's. So I'm like, why not? Why wouldn't I do that? I'm one of those people. And then so back in probably maybe 2018 or 17, my kids were a little bit older. We'll be headed to college in a few years, and I have a passion for education and just wanted to better pose myself so I can make sure I can continue to contribute, in my professional arena. So I started looking into some instructional design, and I thought it was very interesting thinking about today's learner and what we can do to make sure that we design and deliver instruction in a way that is that they can digest and learn from. So I decided to go ahead, and while I was teaching full-time with 2 kids, work on my master's in instructional design and development in the UAB School of Education. And that was a great program. I learned a lot, very, very challenging. I mean, it was a harder lift than I anticipated going in, but I'm really glad that I did it because I have a skill set that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I mean, I had the foundational knowledge from when I was at Clemson, but I hadn't really built upon that because one thing about optometric educators, most of us are subject matter experts, but we're not necessarily trained teachers. And most professors, you go to a school, they're a chemistry professor, they teach chemistry, but they are not trained how to teach chemistry. So I thought it was important to make sure that I have some of those skills so that I was potentially going to help teach and support other optometric educators in that arena. But I ended up becoming dean, so I'm still doing it, but just a little bit different way.
So crazy you say that trained in chemistry, but not trained to teach it. And I have nowhere near the amount of math and science. I just couldn't do it. And maybe one reason I couldn't do it is because I didn't have teachers who knew how to teach. And it wasn't until I have a brother who's a Marine. He left. I was at Lincoln University in Jefferson City. He was at Mizzou in Columbia, Missouri, and he drove the 20 minutes to come and tutor me. And I promise you, a light bulb went off. Like no one had ever taught it to me in that way. And when I hear you say that, I think I can just see him sitting with me and that light bulb going off. And I was just so stunned that he could tell me in a way that I got it. And no
really
one
understood.
has ever been able to do that.
Right. Because just because I'm a great physicist doesn't mean that I'm able to clearly articulate the principles of physics to my students, so you have to really have some knowledge and expertise and training and actually how to teach in many cases to be an effective teacher. There are natural born teachers, but most people aren't that. Most people have to be trained in some of those techniques and concepts.
Are you telling us you're a physicist also?
I am certainly not.
Okay, I'm like, no. I missed that paragraph.
No, ma'am. That is not my calling. No.
No, I wouldn't have been surprised.
But I am not.
Let me just say too that there's a part of me that I want you to tell me that you burn your rice. That you're a terrible driver.
Oh my! I can tell you, it was so funny. This week I was boiling some eggs. Put them on the pot. I usually let them boil for 10 minutes. My husband's out of town, And then I'm in the room and I hear this noise in the condo that we're living in. And I'm like, what is that noise? So I call my husband, not that he could really do anything, but I'm like, Keith, I think something's in the house. So I go on the phone with him and then I walk in the kitchen. How about I just forgot they were on the stove? All the water in the pot had boiled out and one of the eggs had just burst. And that's what I was hearing. So I definitely have my moments. So don't feel too bad.
My friend, not to mention as expensive as eggs are. You just
I know, I was
spend-
so mad. Why did I take the other eggs and put them in the refrigerator that were burnt? I'm like, I can't throw them away yet. I have to hold on to them for a while.
Oh my gosh, that is wonderful. Before I let you go, it's important, really, I think, when we are, and I do present myself as someone who wants to be encouraging and wants others to be in some way, shape, or form inspired by not only what I do every day, but the journey that I share, right? And so, given that, along your journey, you have had your own inspiration and you have had, I'm sure, mentors along the way and challenges that you were able to navigate with the help of others. Can you share a story about one of those moments or one of those people?
I think when I think about, I mean, I've had a lot of mentors and a lot of people who have helped me along my journey. But one person I think about in particular is Dr. Melvin Shipp. He's actually was a faculty member at UAB when I was in school there and was the first African American dean in the country at Ohio State. But he was a teacher, and Dr. Shipp, when I was in optometry school, I ended up getting a scholarship through the Navy, so Health Professional Scholarship Program, and I actually served time in the military. But Dr. Shipp was a Navy reservist, so he wrote one of my letters of recommendation and was really instrumental in helping me get that Navy scholarship. But even more important, Dr. Shipp, very, very educated, very just, I can't even describe how important he is to me. But what I remember the most about him is he had his office, and you would go in his office with something that's probably not even really important. And he would sit there and with this soothing voice and listen to you and kind of have you talk through whatever it is you were going through, like he didn't have anything else in the world to do. Now, me being a dean and me being a faculty member, I understand now that Dr. Shipp probably had a million things that he needed to do, but he took the time to give us what we needed and be with us in that moment. So what that allows me to do is when I am interacting with people, and I'm definitely not anywhere near as good with this with him, but I understand how important it was for me to have that role model in my life, to have that African-American male faculty member at UAB, because maybe if he wasn't there, maybe I would have never had a tickle in the back of my mind that I could be dean. But because I knew him, he taught me, he became dean. I knew I could be dean, but more importantly, I knew how important he was to giving us a safe landing space as an optometry student. So I try to be that when I can for my students, for my faculty, and for my friends. And I just think it's important to be able to give to others.
And it sounds like you say that he wasn't just there for you as a Black student, he was there for all the students.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who knows Dr. Shipp, Dean Shipp, and I cannot call him Melvin, no matter what, he's always Dr. Shipp to me. Just that respect I have there for him. But they will say the same thing. I mean, just a really kind person, and has so many degrees. So could be very arrogant if he wanted to be, could be elitist if he chose to be, because he has the CV to back that up, but he is none of those things.
Well, you've got your own long list of, I got lots of pieces of paper.
Oh my gosh.
In a single space
Oh my
with
goodness.
the description of your journey. We celebrate Black History Month for many reasons. And one of those is because we have so many amazing things that we are unaware of about ourselves.
Right.
Because our history purposely for centuries was diminished, devalued, and therefore hidden. And so Black History Month remains relevant that we might discover who we were and therefore who we are. And who we are is encompassed in this woman today. We are living history. And Dr. Keisha Elder, Dean of the College of Optometry at the University of Missouri, St. Louis, you are indeed living history.
Thank you. Thank you. That is so kind.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on KMOX.
Thank you.